welcome back to another episode of One Step Further. For those that don't know, I am Justin Arnold. And for those that are listening to this podcast for the first time, this is a faith-based podcast where we try to provide valuable tips to lead your life a step further, whether it be personally, professionally, emotionally, spiritually. Today we just learned that gyms here in New York are allowed to open starting next week under, of course, guidelines. And I asked Jeremy a little bit ago to come on here for a lot of different reasons, but I'm like, man, God works in mysterious ways. Perfect timing here, Jeremy. So we have my buddy Jeremy here, who is a gym owner, not too far from me, about 30, 45 minutes, but I'm going to have him introduce himself. He can say whatever he wants, but this guy is an amazing man, amazing family man, amazing Christian, and probably has ADD like me. But anyways, Jeremy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, hey, I've been doing this training stuff for 16 years or so. I'm about like 39 years old. I got a 8-year-old daughter. Well, she's about to be 8 in like a week, and you got a 16-month-old daughter, and we got a 7-month-old puppy. And my wife is incredible. I get to do work that I love. Helping people and, really trying to, our tagline at our business is to restore bodies and lives to the glory of God. That is our mission statement, there is. So it is for that purpose, that we do it. And, we all need a good restoration, as life is hard, it beats us up pretty good. And, so we get to do that, and we get to see how fitness leaks into other areas of life too.
Yeah. And I just visited his house recently. It's like he's got my gym's a playground. His gym's a playground. He's got that playground at his house. It's phenomenal what he's got set up there. Remind me of my childhood. And he's just a good dude. Like he says, I can attest for what he's saying about him. So Jeremy, how has COVID been to you? How has this whole scenario with the way things have been since March here in New York, and how have you guys kind of navigated through it?
I mean, obviously, initially it was shocking. It was, started off with it's probably like there's all these other little diseases that go by, it's just not a big deal. Just float past us and we're fine. So, it was like, I hear hysteria starting, but I was like, it's probably not a big deal. But then all of a sudden we're like, things started to close down, professional sports and things like that. You're like, what? Oh, what? What something? This is really something. And so, we had to make a call there, do we close? Do we close? Not do we wait to be mandated to close, but do we just close?
Yeah.
Before then, and we actually did. We actually closed like a day or two before the mandate, so it wasn't massive, but I like that whole weekend. We were deciding if we're going to do a class on Monday, and the whole weekend I'm like going back and forth, on it, and finally there was just more peace. And shutting down for a period of time, so we did, and then everybody got forced to shut down. So I guess it wasn't so bad, in there, but then, it's, I think you think it's going to be 6 weeks or something like that. She's like, okay, 6 weeks.
Yeah, it will be 6 weeks, right?
It'll be uncomfortable. We'll just try to do some online workouts for clients and find ways to serve them, during that time, and we'll get back to it. And, then it kept getting bumped. So it's like, whoa, it's been probably about 5 months since there's been people inside the studio, and so it's like, oh, that's different. That's a different kind of thing. And so God has been really good to us through all this. We were well set ahead of time, for the struggle. In that, there certainly was some, disheartening moments and stuff, and some gut checks and, things like that in the process here, and coming to terms with any kind of worst case scenario, too. They go like, okay, so what if we close? We have to shut all the way down. When does that happen? What does that look like? Walking through some of those scenarios and just trying to figure out, okay, yeah, we can make it through that, because what's really important is not so much keeping a business open is living a life you can be proud of, so keep powering through.
Yeah, and keeping your members and everybody safe, your family safe, you guys safe. That makes complete sense. How did this? I mean, and for those that aren't familiar, that haven't been paying attention, like ours was interesting. Yeah, we out of all the businesses we've been gyms have been told that they've been the longest, and then there was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks there where like we didn't even know, like Cuomo or state wasn't communicating. And then last week he said indefinitely gyms, and then all of a sudden like Friday he's like, okay, I'll consider it and we'll talk about it Monday. It's like the roller coaster of emotions that are going through, and you're seeing it play out in people's lives on social media, on everything. How is this, for you, that tested you personally? How has it tested you spiritually? How have you responded? And then I also want to, your members, how they respond. But let's start with you, like, and your family and everything.
I mean, the big thing is just everybody got confronted in this with how little control we have.
Yeah.
And then, like you have to come to terms with the fact of, do you trust the one who does have control?
I think that's great. And I'm sorry to pause you, but I think that's great because that's the one thing I said at the beginning of this. I was like, I realized I couldn't control much of anything but myself, and there was the Almighty above that had had all the control. And so that's where I kind of just let go, let God, and live life. But go ahead, Jeremy. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's just, on these situations, I mean, like I would, this is not our first rodeo. It's not the first hard thing we've had to deal with. And so whenever these things come up, it's, that's when I have to lean in, like, because it gets too much for me. If I am ultimately responsible for all of it, I'm having a panic attack. I'm freaking out. I can't do it all myself. And so that's where I have to lean in these times. And that's where you feel like you're getting carried, a bit through something. And you're praying and asking for guidance and wisdom and all of that stuff. And so honestly, there's a part of me that cherishes times like this, as as strange as it sounds, but it's from a Christian perspective, it's not as strange. It's like it just puts gets your priorities in check. It reminds you of what's really important is do you have to make a certain income level? Is that important? Do you have to look a certain amount of coolness or something like that? Is that important? What is really, really important in life? And so it's if we had to close our business, sell our house. I mean, we love our house. It's wonderful, but sell our house.
They got a gorgeous house, by the way, and a gorgeous yard.
God is very good to us, on those counts there. And so, if we had to sell all that stuff and move into a trailer and work, minimum wage and just love on a family, I can do that. I don't want to do that. That's not my first go-to, but just realizing that my self-worth, my value is not in all of that stuff was really helpful to kind of release.
Thank you for saying that. And that, yeah, one thing I affirmed during all this, I knew it, but it's like I affirmed it. It was my number one job, is being dad, being husband, and of course being guided by God. My value isn't, I started to think just like him. This is crazy that you say that, because it's like, man, if the gym were to close and all this was I've been in worse places. For those that don't know, you probably, I don't think we have talked about this, but we have been. What's up?
So you've told me some story, just hinted at.
We've been. I don't want to dive too much, but we've been, because this is all about you, bro. But we've been on some serious, we're on food stamps. I remember this was 10, 11, 12 years ago, but we're on food stamps. I remember driving around my Jeep Grand Cherokee, parking in different spots because I didn't want it to get repoed. I finally got up on payments and everything else. I remember not having insurance and in the hospital for twice, and having these $20,000 medical bills. By the grace of God, they're gone, by the way. We're all cut up. We're good. And so I've been in some serious pain points. I mean, that's low pain. I've been in some deep pain that I don't want to dive into this, maybe a book, but I've been in some serious pain points. And I think that's the key. Like I assume the same for you. And by the way, if you haven't noticed on this, for those watching, it says tall trainer, and I don't want to dive, but he's a tall dude. He's got a great book out, which we'll probably put a link below, but man, like that's got to come from experience of dealing with, and for those that are entrepreneurs, you understand, like we take risks and chances all the day. So this is nothing new to take a risk, take a chance. And those that get through it, navigate it, you know, having God on our side is huge. Having that faith that no matter what at the end of this looks like, he's going to take care of us. And I love to hear that, because I think we all struggle with it sometimes, but it's cool to hear that from you. But is there any, like, have you been through painful or harder situations that and share how, whatever you feel like that has kind of gotten you to be able to navigate through the last 5-6 months or so?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've the ups and downs of business, are wild at times, and you know, this is not the toughest thing, you know, that I've been through. And I think that's what helps. And I think sometimes, I mean, like it's, you know, I always really appreciate, and some of the people that I meet, and I'm like, wow, your perspective is amazing. And like there's a lot of people I look up to. Like some people might say, hey, my perspective is greater or something like that. But like there's some people that like way trump me on that. You know, they're a way stronger perspective. And you know, but I find a lot of times I come across people who have dealt with something really big. Honestly, like the people who I found the most, and I think I had to deal with this in myself, you know, or like cancer. I find when somebody has gone through a cancer battle, like they just get all the other challenges of life so much, like get riled up, like yeah, you know, we're good. You know, we're good. This will be just fine. And so, you know, for me, you know, probably one of the hardest moments we had was had somebody who was working here at my business, a trainer, and you know, he decided he was going to leave and open a place in town, and you know, with a little bit of manipulation there and things like that, you know, got all the clients he was working with to go to all of them. You know, so he was doing the evening classes, and that dropped the, you know, the classes down to essentially nothing in there.
Yeah. And that was, so he basically took a lot of your clients, opening up a new gym, somebody you're partner with, correct? Like that's kind of what you're saying. You yeah. broke up a little bit, so I was just kind of reiterating it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that, the loss of people and the drop in income was not a big factor. It was the betrayal.
That hurt. That's like deep, man. You trust that person, right?
Yeah, it was that was the hardest part to get over. You know, that took a lot of work. Now it was tough, you know, to wade through all that, because these are people that I cared about too, and that through certain words that they must have used, you know, some of them thought we were pretty awful people, you know, and so. You know, so that's pretty hard when people are thinking, you know, that, you know, bad things about you when you're trying to do good for everybody. And, you know, so dealing with that and dealing with the fact that somebody who was a really close friend would do that, you know, it's like, it shakes up your faith in humanity, you know, and you are still scrambling. I mean, like, you know, most businesses don't necessarily do awesome when they, you know, lose like, you know, 1/3 of their income and clients, you know, in a quick little period of time. And, but, you know, that again, God was good to us. We rallied back on that, you know, but getting over that in my headspace it took longer though. You know, we actually rallied back more financially than I did mentally for a little while.
Well, I think that's good, Phoebe. You actually said 1/3, which is what Cuomo actually put out. Like basically, facilities have to be running at 33%, and some people are freaking out even if he was told 50%. So it is interesting that you said that, and it shows that you're already there. And of course, my daughter's going to pop up. This has happened before on these podcasts. These things happen. She wants to be a part of. Yep, there she is. That's my 4-year-old. So with that, yeah, and the other thing was like that I asked a little bit earlier, like how have your members taken this whole situation? Your approach? Are they applauding you guys? Have they stressed out? They've been like, okay, this is it. I mean, how has the majority of your clients, your members, taken this whole scenario, and what's been their attitude, perception? What have they said about everything?
I mean, most of them are ready to come back sooner than, sooner than now. They were ready to get back into stuff. There's some people who are in higher risk scenarios that they weren't quite comfortable yet,
Yeah.
and there's still some that aren't, and I get that they need to stay a little more isolated still because either they interact with a high risk person or they are in fact a high risk, individual themselves. And so we totally get that. I mean, everybody was pretty freaked out initially because I mean that was
We didn't know.
so much unknown, and so I'm happy I did, and I feel like I wish I did more. But we did up communication a lot. I sent out an email every single day, and we started sending out to our clients, and then we just opened up to other people. We just sent out a workout, every day,
Yeah.
for initially, and we had thoughts about what's going on, and different things like that are going out there, and so just trying to just communicate a lot.
I think
It was actually good for me as well, just to put the thoughts out there and things like that too. But I think that was helpful, and our clients have definitely applauded us for our ingenuity and creative ways to get through this. So they've carried us very well through this. Especially initially, there are a lot of them just stayed on their monthly contract, even though all we were giving them was just a free workout that was available to other people to get to too. And we weren't hardly able to do much for them in up to that, that blessing level that they were giving us, so they carried us through this, a bit there too.
And he shared some of his creativity. He's got some pretty cool videos out there. So sign up. You can sign up with him, especially if you're local. But yeah, and something that you talked about earlier, it's like, like with when that co-owner, your partner left you, and something I also want to ask about that was just, it's like you can be doing really good things, and especially if you're a person of faith, and like things are always going upwards, and one thing I've learned from experience is like, not to say this guy's the devil, so but like I feel like the devil's always there, like he's doing push-ups in the parking lot just waiting, and you just always got to have your defenses up and always be ready mentally. And it sounds like you are, and just it's all right to get emotion, it's all right to cry. Hold on, baby. It's all right to cry, and it's all right to like not always feel like you got everything to go together, but that's where we always go to God, and that's always go to the Bible. Because I had an incident when I was coming back from the Dominican, and I was on cloud nine. I was doing God's work. I was teaching future entrepreneurs in the Dominican. It was all, a mission trip out there to actually teach and educate, which is like something I'm super passionate about. And then I come back, and it's like, I feel like, again, the devil's doing push-ups right as soon as I get off that airplane. And I just thought, man, so I'm sure it's similar for you. But it sounds like, man, you got your head on straight, and it's cool. So as far as like the news that the governor's dropped down, it sounds like you guys got a lot of things already in the works. Is there anything as far as plans, works, thoughts on that, or anything you'd like to touch on that?
As far as the reopening opportunities and those kind of things is it's 33% capacity, which I mean we've never hit capacity in here, and so we purposely have it less than that anyway. And so I like, that's not as big of an issue. Is we want to make sure the environment's really good for them. That they're comfortable with what we've got set up, and I think most of them are. We've been posting like all the changes and updates that we've made, to the studio, the cleaning practices, all the ventilation, and all those kind of things that we're doing. And so even before there was some guidance, on that. So I feel like we're pretty good on that. The announcement with probably the biggest thing is the mandatory masks.
Maybe
all times was one of the stipulations there. And so that one, because of that one, we probably will stay outside mostly for September.
Yeah.
It's just way more fun to be farther apart from each other, not wearing a mask. So we probably will stay outside doing that. But
Yeah.
if it gets colder and that mask requirement, it does not change, even if we're spread apart a lot inside, if that's still everybody has to wear a mask, is probably what we'll do is, we'll shift over to shorter sessions and just resistance training only, and not make people have to like really gasp for air while wearing a mask.
Yeah. And I was curious about that because, and while there's all these things coming out, oh, look at, I wore a mask and I worked out and I ran a marathon and I did this, and that's fine. If you notice, a lot of these people doing are really healthy individuals. But my concern is with the overweight, the obese wearing those masks. That's why I've seen, even with my own clients, of like much harder breathing already when their breathing's compromised, with the weight on their diaphragm. So I'm with you on that one. And I think, and the same thing for me. We're mainly personal training, small group. Before COVID, we were capping our groups at 10. And like, I've always been about less is more anyways, because I want to personalize it as much as possible. Yeah. And I know we're very similar. Like, we're different, but we're similar here with Jeremy. Well, that's really cool. As far as like, since we've talked about some things, on here, and hopefully some people have found some value in it. And this podcast, again, is called One Step Further. What are some things that, like, people that are listening, whether it be a gym owner or just a human being, and whether it be fitness related, that, man, if you only had a few moments to talk to them and they're listening to this, and what's one thing personally, professionally, spiritually, emotionally that you'd love to just share on your heart today to help them move their life one step further?
I mean, one of the things, certainly is, you need, I would encourage you to have a relationship with God. And if you don't have one currently, is start poking around. It says in the Bible, knock and it'll be open, seek and you'll find, ask and be given to you. Like, you have to reach out for it. If you say, hey, I want that in my life. And that's really where I got to in my own faith was, you go through your 20s and you struggle with that concept. I grew up around it, but you go into your teens and 20s and like, you just kind of go, I don't know what am I about? What do I believe? And at some point I see these people. I want some of what they have there. And so I started reaching out, trying to figure that out. And that's where it starts. And as far as getting through the crisis here, this challenge, we used a lot of Dave Ramsey principles, and I would encourage people to, look at that, that has helped us a ton. That's how we got the house that we have, as we paid off, our cars are paid off, our house is paid off, our student loans are paid off. That's awesome. Have essentially no payments on anything. And so we can take a big hit on income and still be pretty positive and pretty so I don't fear for my survival like some people have. Like, so I see some of the comments that gym owners are making in the social media and things like that. And they're bonkers, it's crazy.
It's fear. It's a lot of fear, isn't it?
And if you handle yourself a little bit, one is that you just trust God. That takes care of a lot of fear. You realize that you can get another job and you'll be okay. And the other thing is, don't leverage yourself so hard, and it's not as scary.
I think that's the key of being an entrepreneur and a business owner too. Like, you navigate through the waters. I mean, no matter what the change of scenery or whatever else, you find a way. If your purpose and your passion and your why are so massively huge, I just believe through God, through faith and relationships, you'll find a way. I don't know. That's just my silly little self, but that's I was going to ask. You kind of shared your story there, because like for me, like, I grew up Catholic and I wasn't always a believer, and you talked about just kind of learn. So for those that are listening, or those that, a lot of people in my current, that know me over the last like 5-10 years, might have always assumed, they don't know my deep story, that I've always been this way. And I haven't. I grew up a Catholic, and I was, in my teenage years, was still loved people. I mean, since 12, I can remember, all I want to do is look back on my 80-year-old self and know I changed at least one life. It's always been me. And now I have God aligned with that. But it wasn't until I was almost 20 years old till I started believing in a higher power. And so, and then, domino effects to where I am now. Is your story similar? Have you always been in faith? Is it had peaks and valleys? I mean, I'd love to pick your brain just a little bit before we kind of wrap it up here. I was just curious about that That's more me personally. If somebody's listening wants to
Yeah.
enjoy this, I'm sure they take something on that. But you talked about nuggets, and I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
There's definitely peaks and valleys, and honestly, I still have peaks and valleys. It's like any relationship. Like, a lot of times it doesn't peg out in ecstasy. Constantly. Is like
Rainbows and unicorn, is I like to say, is not always that. So that's
yeah.
fun.
And so there are hard times, and when you see little kids getting cancer, and you see people dying before they should, and you see the racial injustice and all of this stuff, and like it breaks your heart for this world.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, and you go like, why doesn't God do something? And so there are struggles with that, because that's a big question people have, is why doesn't he just stop it all? And where I go back to is, one is free will. He gave us free will, and we've chosen to do some rough stuff with it, and he has a plan to fix it all. So it's not like we're stuck with this. One thing that really helps me out a lot, I saw this little comic, and it was two babies in a womb, and one baby says to the other one, "Do you believe in mom?" And so from where they're at, they can't see mom. They have no evidence of mom.
I love that. I've never heard that.
And so for them, it's like this weird thing, and they're in this womb, and they think that's the world. That is the entirety of existence.
Man, this is blowing people's mind. It's blowing my mind, because like that's such a great, like, but when they come out, what do they do? What do? They go right for the mother. They hold her. They start breastfeeding, whatever. And they never seen her, but just know. That's a great. It's like the same thing when you go up to heaven. I'm sure
that's what I think of. I think of this world is the womb.
That's all.
It is like a training center, a preparation center for the real thing, And so some of this stuff, like when as a parent, like, you don't want to be the parent that saves your kid from every hard thing, because what happens to them. That you're cutting off their ability to grow.
You want to guide them, but you don't want to do it for them.
You're there to pick them up when it goes real bad.
Mm-hmm.
You hold them, you take care of them, but you let them try things that are kind of dangerous, risky. You let them experiment with, different stuff and try things, and you try to keep them in a reasonably safe place. But you don't just say like, no, you can't drive because people die when they drive. You've got to release some freedom to that. And so God releases some freedom to us. He wants us to go a certain way. He's not going to force us to. When we die, for me, that is like, I imagine that is the birth. That is the time where we get to finally come out and go, this is what we've been building for.
Yeah, if you just gave some people one step further, I think that's a huge one with everything you just said there. That is massive. Take that with it. Start learning, start growing, and I've posted it last week, and I say it consistently, like, we were meant to serve. God calls us to serve, but even out of Christian, our brain, there is scientific fact that shows the pleasure centers in our brain respond the same when we serve, that when we eat delicious food, and then when we also have intercourse. So there's a correlation. So life, food, and serve are all in the same spot in the brain. That it's not a coincidence, and there's reason for it, and it's built into us. It's ingrained into us. It's part of the way we work. And you talked about that, and I love that. Well, anything else you'd like to share? I'm definitely going to put some notes below, because this guy has written a wonderful book. He's definitely somebody you want to follow. He's actually on my wife's TV station pretty regularly, doing some awesome stuff. He's just a good dude, and you should definitely follow him. Maybe you have anybody. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up here, Mr. Tall Trainer, Mr. Jeremy?
No, it was great. I enjoy any opportunity I have to talk with you. So thanks.
Oh, man, that means a lot.
And hopefully we were able to encourage and give some good ideas to some people who are listening.
Yeah, keep your head up and reach out to either one of us if you guys are still struggling or you're curious about faith. The idea is just explore it, and then learn all you can. And again, we talked about it earlier about relationships. That's what makes Christianity unique. It's about building a relationship with God, with Jesus, with others. If you think it's about following rules or God making everything over rainbows or unicorns, you definitely have some things to learn, and we'd be happy to help you out. Well, again, thanks for tuning in another episode. Like I said, check him out. Always appreciate it. Click like, share, subscribe on these, click on notifications so you always know the upcoming episodes that we have. And if you have any ideas or anybody you'd like us to interview or chat with, definitely provide those. And if you are listening, you get an opportunity, 5-star reviews. We've already got a few on there on iTunes. Those go a long way, because this could impact one person's life, and you can be a part of that just by commenting, sharing, or reviewing it. Again, thanks for tuning in, and I'm Justin Arnold. Take care.